So for painting, you're going to want always a clean cup of water. When this water starts to get discolored, you want to go back to the sink and get fresh water. You're going to need your paint. You're going to need a board for mixing your colors. And you're going to need a couple different sizes of brushes. You're not going to need a big brush, but a medium brush and then a smaller brush. And you can share these brushes at your table. If a student is using one brush, then maybe you can borrow. If we don't have enough, you can definitely share. So when you're mixing colors, you're going to want to do all your mixing on your palette, not where the paint is. I want all these paints to be clean and they're true colors. So for instance, I don't want to see green on this yellow, and I don't want to see other colors, like especially the white. Let's try to keep it clean and keep that white nice and clean on the surface. When you're mixing, you want to get some water on your board. Then you want to get some color. I'm going to grab some purple here. Okay, so I have some purple down and I want to mix a little bit more blue into that purple. So I'm going to clean off my brush so that there's no purple on it, so I don't contaminate this blue and get some of the purple on it. So I'm going to get a little bit of blue and mix it in. I like that purple much better. Okay. While you're painting, you always want to have your picture pulled up. You're looking at where are the dark areas, where are the shadows, where are the lighter areas, and make sure that you indicate that while you're painting and while you're shading. So that I have the purple color that I like, and it doesn't have to be the same color of the shoe that you have. Be creative, add different colors, have fun with what you're doing. So I'm going to need a lighter purple, so I'm going to take a bunch of white, and even though you can't really see the white on your palette very well, it is there and it'll make a lighter color. Remember, my brush is clean so that I'm not contaminating the white. Okay, and then I'm going to grab a little bit of this purple so I get a lighter color. So I'm looking at my picture and I'm doing some darker areas first. So right here on my shoe is very dark, so I'm going to do that the darker purple. Sometimes after you lay the paint down, if it's not as dark as what you'd like, you can always add more pigment to your water on your palette to get a darker color. I'm being very careful on my edges. And so while we're painting is we're laying down a pigment and just a little bit of color before we start to shade over this, and it'll actually make your shading a little easier to do. So that's a darker purple area. Down here is a darker purple area. One thing that you want to do when you're painting is you want to stay away from the areas you just painted. For example, I am not going to paint this spot, because if I painted this spot's wet and this color is going to seep into my lighter color. So I'm going to wait until the next day to paint that spot, so that way it's completely dry and I know that my color isn't going to seep together. So that spot's a darker purple. Up between here is a darker purple, so I'm going to go ahead and paint that. Remember, it doesn't have to be exactly the same color that your tennis shoe is. If you get creative with your colors, I mean, don't paint it where it's like a rainbow, but if your shoe is black, if you paint it red, that's okay. I have a smaller brush so I can get on the edges really nice. I'm not going to go over my lines. I'm going to be very careful. Right up here. The shoe is very darker, is much darker. Okay, I'm going to rinse my paintbrush off and I'm going to go ahead and do the lighter color right there. Kind of mix it in to that color while it's wet. Makes kind of a neat effect. You don't want to get your paper so wet that it's disintegrating your paper. You're just laying down a little bit of color. Okay, so at the end of the hour, after you've finished painting for the day, you're going to take your paintbrushes and you're going to wash them out with cold water, not hot water. Hot water just makes the bristles fall out of your paintbrush. So in here, there's glue. And so when you use hot water, that glue gets warm and then it loosens all these bristles. And then the next time anyone paints, you're going to have a hairy picture. So we want to wash with soap and water, clean them really nicely, and then leave them on the counter, and I will put them away in the correct place. So soap and water, clean them out with cold water.